Good day to all of you. Today I am in Baltimore, Maryland, covering a podcast story that was always very intriguing to me. And so I want you guys to come along with me today. But before you do, I want to warn you, for those of you that are sensitive to certain things, that this does cover a very sensitive topic of murder. So if you guys are sensitive to that, or if you have little ones that you don't want to expose to this, I encourage you to skip to the next video. So happy 4th of July to you guys. It's the 4th of July. Just spent yesterday in Philadelphia. Quite busy. They were setting up for the 4th of July, getting ready for their festivities and their fireworks display. This is actually my final day of filming on this leg of the journey. So I'm gonna go home now and spend some time with my family and then plan what next adventures will bring for you guys to watch. So this is a normal school here in Baltimore, Maryland, just like any other school throughout the US. But in 1999, a set of events happened that changed this high school in this area forever, or at least for this generation. So a young student here by the name of Heyman Lee came up missing and was eventually found murdered. And her boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was suspect number one. The case probably would have went just like any other case in history. It happened. It's unfortunate. But 15 years after this, 1999, so 15 years later, a podcast came along called Serial and brought light to this story.
This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Adnan Syed,
an inmate at Maryland.
So he wanted an alibi?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can say is, man, it was just a normal day to me. There was absolutely nothing abnormal about that day to me.
And they questioned a lot of the facts. And then of course Adnan, he had told Sarah Koenig in the podcast that he did not do it. But unfortunately he had not remember where he was. But in this podcast, she made it very clear that it was very difficult to keep track. I mean, most people don't remember what they did from week to week, and here we are asking this guy 15 years later to recall a set of where were you at? What time were you there? Did you have an alibi? And unfortunately, all of his alibis were wishy-washy, and his character witnesses were not even used in court. So today what I want to do is we're actually going to follow the trail of the events that took place during this event, what happened. We're going to visit the real locations that are tied to this disappearance, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that just transpired around this case. So over by a tree here, by the flagpole, there is a plaque It says, in memory of Haley, a member of the class of 1999, donated by SAD. It is here at this location where prosecutors said that Adnan had committed the murder. This used to be a Best Buy. It's now turned into some kind of storage unit. But, as they highlighted in the Serial podcast, no witnesses ever saw them here. There used to be a payphone that was right inside those doors there. Is allegedly the phone that Adnan had called on for Jay to come pick him up. But through this time, Jay's story had changed several times. This goes back to when you're dealing with young guys, kids really, as adults, our memories are foggy. So, kids' memories are definitely going to be foggy. So it's like, how much of this is concealment and how much of it is just human nature. So Jay, on March 15th, 1999, drew a map, and I'll put a link down in the description below for a copy of that map. But he drew that McDonald's was up there. Here's cement barriers now that you can't cross to go into the other. But according to his drawing, the murder would have taken place roughly where that camper trailer is sitting right there. So I will actually GPS mark this location because, as things change over time, it'll become unrecognizable. But I'll mark this location for anybody that wants to come re-step these tracks, this trail that I'm creating. This is actually Leakin Park. Leakin Park has a pretty dark history as far as lots of crime has went on here. A lot of murders. They found numerous deceased bodies in this park. You wouldn't know that by looking at it, though. It looks like a normal park. Playground set to the left. There's tennis courts over here to the right.
In 500 feet, turn left onto Windsor Mill Road. Now turn left onto Windsor Mill Road.
There is another entrance to Leakin Park off of Franklin Town Road, which is where I'm driving to now. That's going to be the closest to where the body of Haymon Lee was found. Okay, so this is driving in the Franklin Road, or Franklin Town Road entrance. And I see some trails. This is the Gwen Falls Trail, Leakin Park. So Hay's body was discovered here around February 9th, and it was buried in a shallow grave just over the hill here, which I'll go to that location next. But, Jay said that, or I'm sorry, rather, Mr. S is the one that found the body. Allegedly, he went off the side of the road to use the bathroom, and that's when he discovered some black hair that was in a shallow grave. I just want to iterate something on this this particular video. Is I'm not giving like the full
Turn right onto North
story
Franklin Road.
of everything that happened.
In half a mile, your destination will be on
This
the
is
left.
more of just like a location video to kind of show you the general idea for those of you who listened to the podcast or followed this case. This is kind of what that's geared towards, or anybody that has an interest. If you like true crime, stuff, then you can follow this case as well. Just a little tidbit of information there. So this isn't like a complete rundown of everything, just highlighting locations. So I cannot get out of the vehicle because of the location, but literally her body was found right up here, like literally right back in there.
Leakin Park, there's a body and we have to measure and so forth. Then I came out. I was a detective, I think he was a sergeant, and I followed him into the woods. And eventually he crosses this log and I'm behind him. And then he walks up to this point and stops. And I'm still walking along the edge of the log. And then he says, "Stop! Stop! You're gonna walk on the body." This is a little graphic. And he points to an area that wasn't covered with dirt, and it was only about that much of an area. And he said that's the girl's ankle. On the ground, it looked like just natural ground. It was like a little rise. Wasn't much, maybe, I don't know, maybe a foot. I would have never guessed that was a burial site. I wouldn't have known that.
And I'll put a GPS location exactly where it was on the vlog page, or the blog page that I put together. You know, in the Serial podcast, they revealed that the cell phone data used to place Adnan near here was unreliable, especially for incoming calls, because you have to remember back then, we did not have the cell phone technology that we have today for triangulation. So back then it was shady. So really, you know, if you was to give that guy now, if you was to give him a trial today, would it be the same outcome? You know, we'll find out later, you know, and I'll kind of brief at this at the end of the video, but they had no DNA. He was not linked to any DNA. There was DNA on her body. It was not his. It was of an unknown person. So, you know, it's one of those things. Just on another note, you know, a lot of the signs and a lot of the landmarks that Sarah Koenig had talked about in the Serial podcast, they just aren't there anymore. You know, she had done this investigation 15 years after, so, you know, let's say 1999, so let's say 2000, so since 2015, and it's now 2025, so another 10 years has passed. You know, those bullet hold signs are no longer there. A lot of the landmarks that she talked about is no longer there. They've put up a guardrail, so you can no longer pull off to the right-hand side to have access to that. You'd have to literally park at Leakin Park and then walk the road or the trails to get to there. So I don't know what the likelihood of it is that someone could have showed up there, dug a grave, put somebody in that grave, and not have been seen by somebody. That's kind of what befuddles me, I think, the most about this. The other thing is that there was a lack of so much evidence.
Forest Park Avenue.
And everybody's stories were so... Even Adnan's stories would change from time to time, or he would remember new details. Just the whole thing. And then something, you know, that he had was he had an attorney. I believe his attorney was some corruptness in her. So I don't know if she did some things just to drag the case out to make more money, or if she truly just didn't know what she was doing. She's no longer alive. She has passed away. So there's really no way to go back and analyze any of that. Only what we have is, you know, the evidence, the proof, and the documents, and the actions that she took back then. So the next location that I'm taking you guys to is where they found Heyman Lee's car. This is close to Jay Wild's house. I don't know how close it is. I couldn't really reference, nor did I want to reference exactly where he lived. But this is very near where his house is. And I'm not sure, like, this is a grassy lot. Behind this address is where the car was found. So I don't know if I'll be able to get out, if I'll have access to it. I don't want to intrude on people. I don't know who owns it today. So it may literally be a drive-by. I'm not sure at this point because I don't truly know what to expect. So this would have been the grassy lot that was described. So somewhere in here is where they parked her car. Whoever. That's the grassy lot.
In 500 feet, turn right onto Edmondson Avenue. Now
So this is the courthouse that Adnan's original trial took place in 2000. This is Baltimore Circuit Court here in downtown Baltimore, Maryland. You know, in the Serial podcast, they revealed a lot of information. And the big information that they revealed was the attorney, Adnan's attorney, Christina Gutierrez, was later disbarred because she failed to call key witnesses. So it makes you wonder, like, did he really get a fair trial out of this? So that took place back in 2000. June of 2000 is when he was actually sentenced. In 2022, new evidence led to the conviction being vacated. And then in 2024, it was reinstated briefly because they misfiled paperwork or didn't notify everyone of the paperwork or something to that extent. But then in 2025, he was resentenced to time served and currently is spending, I believe, 5 years on probation. You know, the Serial podcast, it exploded into the world's podcast with over 300 million downloads. And I was actually listening to another podcaster, and he was talking that he was stuck on this podcast called Serial, and it was basically about a true crime murder that happened in Baltimore, Maryland. So I actually went, found the podcast, and then became addicted to the podcast myself. And I listened to it all the way through the first time, and then since I have listened to it multiple times. But today, the only way you can listen to it that I found is you have to be a subscriber through like the New York Times or something like that. I'm not sure. So if you haven't heard it and you want to hear it, I mean, you maybe will find it on YouTube. I have not researched that, but a lot of it now is really just you have to subscribe through another platform. You know, the reason why I think that this took me so far down this rabbit hole, for lack of better words, is that, you know, I've always questioned the justice system, especially after there's been a lot of people that were mis-sentenced or sentenced to life in prison, then later, because of DNA evidence and what have you, come to find out that they never even did the crime, and they had spent the majority of their life already in prison. So I'm thinking, you know, this was a 17-year-old boy that went into the prison system and spent the majority of his young adulthood up into his middle ages in prison for a crime that he may or may not have committed. But with all the evidence, you know, now with the DNA evidence that they found no DNA on him, or on her rather, of him, but they did find DNA, but it was an unknown person. With his attorney not handling the trial correctly, and then with the stories like Jay changing his story constantly, almost makes you feel like maybe he was coached on what to say, because you have to remember that in the judicial system, people just want to close cases, and that's unfortunate to say. But I have seen it here, you know, at a local level. I've seen it at a state level, where just things, we got to get it done and we've got to move on, and let's figure out who's responsible, because somebody's got to pay a debt to society for what they've done. We got to bring peace to a family. And it just seems like sometimes that people who are investigating these things already have written the story in their brain the way it happened, and then sometimes I think they, I don't want to say manipulate, but they lead people to kind of come to that agreement that this is what happened. And I think under stress, and when you're thinking about, you know, in that mindset, if you're faced with life in prison or 25 years in prison or whatever the case may be, and these police officers, these detectives are offering you a way out of that, if this is the only way, do you conform to that? Do you just say, yep, that's what happened? Or do you stretch the truth? Do you do what you have to do because you're so scared as a young man or woman? You're so scared that you don't know what to do. So you've been put into a situation that you're just comply. so that you can get out of that stressful, uncomfortable situation and just move on with your life. The other thing that really didn't help either is the witnesses changing the stories, and it was rumors that the family was pressuring and paying off witnesses. Did that happen? I have no idea. Some people just call it a delay. Others say justice denied. But in the end, Hayes' family, as far as I'm aware today, of what all major sources say, Hayes' family still believes that Adnan is guilty. So I guess at the end of the day, whether you believe that Adnan is innocent or not, this case ultimately has changed how we think about crime and storytelling. You know, in the serial case, they did such an excellent job of telling the story and not being, wishy-washy and not taking sides, but just telling a story and allowing the listener to make their own decision. And that's what we want to do in this episode here, is let you come to your own conclusion. Do your research, listen to the podcast, read the court case files. You decide. If you were a jury in this case, once you've read through all the stuff, or if you already have, leave some comments down below on if you think he's guilty, not guilty, why. Not just guilty, not guilty, but why is he not guilty, or why do you think he's guilty? So let's create some conversation down below in the comments on that. But, let's just remember one thing and just take a minute, okay? That at the heart of this case, Haymon Lee was a real teenager with dreams, aspirations, a bright future ahead of her time, just a bright future that could be ahead of her. And that was all stolen by somebody. We don't know who. The court systems and a jury made that decision that it was Adnan. But I still today have a glimmer of doubt in my mind. I don't know if that doubt is intuition, if it's wanting to believe the best, if that doubt was created by the witnesses' stories, if that doubt was instilled in me by a failed legal system, a failed attorney. But all I know is that today, back then, today, there's still a grieving family over a lost life, a lost soul. And let's not forget that. I guess that's what we really I want to drive home on this. And let's not forget her name and all the noise that's happening in the world. That's all I have for today. Here's to a lot more miles and many, many more memories.